Jordan Bohannon assaulted outside of DC's bar in Iowa City. Now that some time has passed by, some reaction to that incident. Also, Jason Manson hired on as part of Iowa football's staff. And also, Iowa gets a new commitment from an offensive lineman in its class of 2022. Plus, we talk about the Iowa schedule, some Big Ten kickoff times announced, some reaction and some predictions about Iowa's schedule in 2021. All that and much more during week 164 of Brada's Branded Thoughts. This is from the Hawkeye of the Storm.
Are you a Hawkeye fan living in Story County? Do you feel isolated, like you're alone in a maze of red? Well, you're not the only one. And that's why we here at StoryCounty.news have launched a brand new section of our website, From the Hawkeye of the Storm, which will feature our weekly podcast, Brada's Branded Thoughts, as well as other Hawkeye-related content for all you Story County residents who bleed black and gold, or if you live in Western Iowa, Eastern Iowa, or somewhere else other than Ames and you're a Hawkeye fan, we'd love your support. All of our content is free, so again, give our Facebook page a follow, give it a like, and give our Twitter page a follow as well, at From the Hawkeye on Twitter. The more likes, the more follows, the more support we get, the more content we can continue to push out, and it's all free. It's From the Hawkeye of the Storm, hosted by StoryCounty.news, for the best Hawkeye content in the area.
Week 164 of Brada's Branded Thoughts. We are coming to you talking Iowa hoops, Iowa football as always, and talking about what's going to be sort of a quick-moving, fast-moving summer, I think. And that's a good news item for so many people across the country, but so many people here locally in the state of Iowa, and certainly Hawkeye fans alike. So first of all, wanted to address the Jordan Bohannon situation. We didn't talk about that because we haven't been on since it happened. If you missed the story here just days ago now, Iowa guard Jordan Bohannon was involved in an incident at DC's bar in Iowa City. Now that information was not released to the university. The university basically released a statement from Fran McCaffery that they were concerned about Jordan's health. He had suffered a quote-unquote serious head injury due to what they called an assault, and what the police have called an assault. Doing some extra digging. This did take place outside of DC's bar. It really didn't take much extra digging. There's a video circulating if you haven't checked that out. You don't really see much in the video, but you do see Jordan Bohannon get decked. You do see Jordan Bohannon with a phone in his hand. Looks like he is filming someone that he's involved in a verbal altercation with, and of course, it turns physical. A guy to Jordan's left takes him out. First of all, the reason why we didn't jump on last week to address this situation, I'll put it very simply, is because we didn't really know where Jordan's health was. The video, again, didn't really tell the full story. We don't know yet what the full story here, and we may never know what the actual story behind this altercation was. But it does show Jordan Bohannon getting laid out, and that's concerning from a health standpoint, right? Whether you like Jordan Bohannon or you don't, no Iowa fan, or shouldn't be any human, should be happy that an assault occurred and a serious head injury occurred. If you're happy about that, then you need to go to therapy. You have an issue. But we're here to address a different aspect of this incident, and that is leadership. All right. The reason I didn't want to come on and talk about this last week was because, again, the verdict on Jordan Bohannon's health was still very much in question. Okay. Now, we have not received any additional information from the University of Iowa since that head injury occurred. As we record this on Thursday, June 3rd, Iowa head coach Fran McCaffery is scheduled to meet with the media in less than 2 hours. So by the time you hear this podcast, we will likely know more from an official standpoint from Fran McCaffery. Will he give much as far as details, probably not, right? Certainly medical details, he's not going to expound on those. And that's fine. That's from a legality standpoint, that's understandable. But we may end up knowing more today, we may not. Here's what we do know, though. And this is, again, information from the Iowa City Police Department. The investigation is being conducted by Iowa City PD. All right, so this is an Iowa City Police Department investigation. They are confirming that this was an assault. In addition, Jordan Bohannon's podcast team, which features him and another young man that they conduct the Standpoint podcast, as they call it, released a statement yesterday. And this statement reads as follows. First and foremost, we wanted to thank everyone for their support over the last week. We appreciate the listeners and community that we have created over the last 9 months. That being said, we are going to be back July 1st. Until then, we have a lot of great things we are going to be working on regarding the podcast and building the brand surrounding it. We heard your feedback and will be adjusting the podcast to reflect that. Please be patient, because once July 1st gets here, it will all be worth it. P.S. Yes, the full story regarding the Jordan incident will be talked about so that all the speculation can come to an end. While assuming and putting together false narratives is fun and causes drama, we will finally be able to set the story straight. Thank you again for your support, and see you in a month. Zach and Jordan. First of all, I want to say this. It sounds as if, from that statement, that Jordan's health is not in serious jeopardy, right? I'm going to assume that. Maybe I shouldn't assume that. I want to assume that, right? Nobody wants to see Jordan Bohannon dealing with a serious head injury that could affect his health moving forward. But I think that statement also allows us to discuss a different aspect of this incident, and that is, again, leadership. Again, we don't know what exactly happened. We know there was an assault. We know there was an altercation. Why? Who said what? Was it... Nobody deserves to get their lights knocked out, but what led to it? We don't know all those details, but here's what we do know. Jordan Bohannon was at a bar at DC's at 2 o'clock in the morning in a verbal altercation with someone. Now, this is a sixth-year senior, right? Kid has been here, he's been playing since he was a freshman. He's going to be one of the longest tenured Iowa players, so to speak, in Hawkeye history. And I believe there comes a point where even a college student, a student athlete, has to take responsibility for one's own actions and has to take responsibility for putting themselves in certain situations, right? It'd be like saying, well, I walked through a dark alley in New York at midnight on a Friday night, 4th of July weekend, and I got assaulted. Does the blame partially lie with me? I don't know. Does it? It wasn't a very good decision, I can tell you that. Jordan's an adult, we get it. But is it smart for a sixth-year student athlete, who I get has every right to be out, has every right to drink, has every right to go out and party, and he can get drunk if he wants. That's his right, right? And I'm not saying he was drunk, but he has the right to do that. But is it smart? Is it wise? Is it the type of thing a sixth-year leader should be doing? I very much question that, okay? And I know there'll be people who totally disagree with that and say he has every right to do this. You can't say that. You're acting like it's his fault. I'm not acting like the assault is his fault. But there's an old proverb that would sort of agree with this take, and that is, and I'm going to paraphrase, of course, but you reap the results of the situations you put yourself into. In other words, if you see danger, if you foresee a situation that could turn messy or ugly, whether it would be your fault or not, if you foresee that, and wisdom, of course, experience and wisdom can help you to foresee that, then what do? You take your leave. You don't continue blundering into a path that's going to turn ugly. The bottom line is, regardless if this was a totally, Jordan there's no question he was assaulted. But if it was completely out of line, and let's be honest, an assault is always out of line. But if it was completely a blindsided attack, that doesn't take away from the fact that Jordan was clearly in a verbal altercation with someone at a bar at 2 o'clock in the morning. Okay? At some point, you've got to grow up. Okay? You're a sixth-year guy. You're supposed to be the leader of this team now. Luka Garza isn't in uniform anymore. Okay, Luka Garza's gone. This is your team. Act like it. To me, a sixth-year guy should be going out of his way to not be a distraction, to not be a hindrance, to not be a bad example. And what we saw in that videotape was an assault and was an absolute disgrace on whoever hit Jordan. But I also saw a sixth-year student athlete not going out of his way to avoid being a distraction. And that's my biggest issue with the situation. And that's why I didn't come on last week and talk about it, because I'm not going to make those statements not knowing what the status of Jordan's health is or was. And again, I want to make it clear, I've said it about 5 or 6 times now, I'm not condoning the actions of the young man who assaulted Jordan Bohannon. He needs to be probably charged with a criminal offense, probably fined. I don't know about jail time. Again, this is an investigation the Iowa City Police Department is heading up. I'm not condoning it at all. But at some point, you have to go out of your way to avoid trouble. And that's my one issue with this situation. And moving forward, I hope this is a lesson learned for Jordan. I would think that he would have known this lesson already. He's one of the more polarizing Iowa athletes that I can remember. Football, basketball, it doesn't matter. There's a segment of the Iowa fan base that doesn't like Jordan Bohannon. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but there is a segment of the fan base that really dislikes Jordan Bohannon for a couple different reasons. We know about his struggles defensively. We know about his struggles athletically. And we also know he's very, very, very outspoken on social media, with politics. He's very outspoken about the name, image, and likeness for student athletes to be able to work and actually be recognized for it and make money based on their likeness and on their name and on their image. And I get that. And I have no issue with that passing if it were to pass. I mean, it is what it is. But he is one of the more polarizing figures in Iowa Hawkeye history. And so, again, you reap what you sow often. I mean, you reap what you sow. And if Jordan is if he's still recovering from this, I wish him nothing but a speedy recovery. But I hope he learns from this situation that, look, you have every right to do what you want to do, to be out at 2 o'clock in the morning, but is it the wise decision? Is it the right decision, the wise decision for you, for your team, for your fan base, for your coaches? And you can say, well, he shouldn't care about the fan base. Well, he should care about the fan base because they're the one paying tickets. They're the ones paying for, think about how many millions of dollars donors have given for the Iowa basketball program. In fact, just recently, a large donation came into the Iowa Athletic Department for men's basketball. This is a distraction. It's a needless distraction. And again, it's not right that it happened on the part of the assaulter, the criminal, as we could call him. But you have to go out of your way to avoid trouble. I hope Jordan learns from it. I do want to move on. I don't want to just sit on this topic the entire show. Some good news. Some very good news. Over the past week, we've had some positive football-related news. First of all, Jason Manson, former Iowa athlete, quarterback. Also, I believe, and this was really, I don't know how old I would have been, 9 or 10 at the time. But I believe he played some wide receiver at Iowa. Jason Manson is now Iowa's director of player development. And we see a trend here. And then, of course, this is going to be the case probably any athletic department in the Big Ten or across the country. A lot of former players that end up being hired on, and that's fine. I think this is a good sign. I mean, I think Kirk Ferentz has went out of his way clearly with these last few hires, Liddell Betts, and now Jason Manson, to hire on former Iowa players who played under him. And I'm not saying that Jason Manson is, if you look at his track record, is more than qualified, but he's also African American. That doesn't hurt, right? That does not hurt. Liddell Betts is African American. That doesn't hurt. And so this is a good hire for Kirk and his staff. If you look at his accolades as far as coaching and administration, he was assistant dean of students and head football coach at St. Thomas More School before he accepted this job. And he also was a student management assistant at Greater Hartford, Connecticut Academy of the Arts. And he was also head football coach at Capital Prep. So he's got a resume. And congratulations to Jason. It's good to have him back in Iowa City. I'm sure locals who remember watching him more than I do will echo those same sentiments. And again, it can't hurt recruiting, and it certainly can't help image. And anybody who wants to act like image isn't important is just either lying or they're completely naive. So that's good news. We also got good news yesterday, as we're again recording this on Thursday, June 3rd. We received confirmation that 2022 offensive line recruit Jack Dotzler has committed to Iowa. Here's a guy who sounds like he was basically born and raised an Iowa guy, and never hurts to get a guy out of Wisconsin, especially an offensive lineman. And here's an offensive lineman who had offers from Penn State, Michigan State, Vanderbilt, Indiana, and some smaller schools as well. So this is a guy who was wanted at the Big Ten level. And George Barnett, this is a good grab for him. I believe, I'd have to look back, I believe this is his first verbal commit since he got hired on. I'd have to look back to see, but I'm pretty certain this is his first verbal commit since taking over as offensive line coach. So, good news there. Dotzler commits. Manson's on board as far as Director of Player Development at Iowa. And here we are, June 3rd. I don't have the exact number of days until kickoff. But I'm telling you, folks, this thing is going to come up fast. I always say that the football season is the shortest season. College football season is the shortest season in sports. It's absolutely the truth. It flies by. It's here, and then before you know it, it's gone. And it seems like the off season is so long. And it is. It really is a long, long off season when you think about you have a bowl game in late December, maybe early January if you're fortunate. And you have all of January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, and finally you get football back in September. So it's a very long off season. But here we are, June 3rd. Big Ten Media Days will be in July. camp and Kids Day and all those good things will start in August. So the countdown is beginning, folks. NBA playoff season is in full go right now, and once the NBA playoffs are over, what do you got? Baseball until we hit, and of course Stanley Cup will finish, I believe, right about the time that the NBA will finish, but you've got baseball, and then college football is fully underway in September. So that is a good thing. We will begin to count down the days and the hours till kickoff. Also, since we last talked here on the podcast, we received more information as far as Iowa's schedule. And I was rather interested, I was rather intrigued by the schedule release from the Big Ten. Because, and I'd have to look back at past years as far as when some of these kickoff times are announced. But I will say this. There are a lot of afternoon games. I know some people like morning games, some people like night games. I'm an afternoon game. I mean, I love night games, don't get me wrong. But I don't like games on Saturday mornings. I have no issue with Friday night games. I know a lot of people, especially in the media, don't like it because of Iowa high school football. I get that. I get that Iowa high school football is a passion of a lot of people. It's not a passion of mine. And in addition, I think it gives the Big Ten a nice limelight for the day because you don't have a whole lot of other games going on, with the exception of a couple Fridays, Black Friday being one of them. There seems to be other games on Black Friday that are of significance, but typically the Big Ten game on Fridays is the marquee game of the night, and I don't think that's a bad thing. Just like I think the MAC should start playing, like afternoon games on Fridays or afternoon games on Thursdays. And they play Thursday, I believe, the MAC does on ESPN, but why not get the rest of your games in before you're going to be overshadowed on Saturdays? That's a thought of mine. But as far as Iowa is concerned, let's run through the schedule now with kickoff times, and all these kickoff times are Central, Midwest times. Let's start with week 1. Get your pen and pencil ready here. September 4th, Iowa versus Indiana in Kinnick Stadium. Probably going to be a top 15 showdown. I'm seeing a lot of preseason polls, early polls, that are indicating Iowa could end up being in the top 15. I even saw top 10, which is kind of mind-boggling to me. I don't see that happening. I definitely think Indiana could slip into there, but I think both teams will be closely ranked, and I could see both being around that 15 line. So what a game to start things off. Big Ten starts right away. You don't get a warm-up game. You don't get a Miami, Ohio, or a Ball State, or a Western Illinois to start things off. You're being thrown into the fire, so to speak, in the Big Ten. Indiana at home. Michael Penix at quarterback for the Hoosiers. Of course, we'll break that game down extensively as we get closer to the season, but what a way to start off the football season. That game will kick off at 2:30, and it'll be on BTN. So, again, I'm happy about the 2:30 kickoff. Gives people time to tailgate early in the day, and then it gives people time to wind their tailgates down or extend their tailgates, and I do think there'll be plenty of tailgating. As we record this, again on June 3rd, the COVID-19 numbers are just absolutely plummeting. Now, we've seen the curve kind of fluctuate over the past 15 months, but it seems like the light at the end of the tunnel is getting very, 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 very bright and very, very large. That could change. But right now, I believe that the moving 7-day average is already down to like 14,000, 15,000, which, I mean, think back to the days where we were getting 250,000 cases a day. If we're not back to almost 100% normal by September 4th, I will be shocked. Okay? I will be shocked. So I think there'll be plenty of tailgating. You're outside. I don't know why the University or the Big Ten would limit tailgating, so I think there'll be full-on tailgating, whether they allow 100% capacity, which I think they will end up allowing 100% capacity at the games. So that game's at 2:30 on the Big Ten Network. September 11th, 9-11, Iowa State in Ames. If you listen to our podcast with Tom Kakert a few weeks back, I'm predicting College game day for that game. Now, I believe, is it Ohio State, Washington? Let me look this up here. I believe Ohio State, Washington. I believe they play that same day on the 11th. Is it Ohio State, Washington, or is it... might be Michigan, Washington. I think I've got this confused here. And of course, nobody wants to give me the right schedule. Let's look at Ohio State's football schedule. All right. Excuse me, Ohio State, Oregon. I was close. Pac-12, that's an 11 a.m. game. It looks like it's been announced as an 11 a.m. game, which I find interesting. Is that correct? 11 a.m. game? According to this, it's an 11 a.m. game on Fox. All right. I guess we'll. I guess that's the big noon kickoff game. That's an early start for Oregon fans. Very early start, but it is in Columbus, so Oregon fans are going to have to be up early for that game. Will game day be at the big noon kickoff game? I don't know. I mean, certainly it's a possibility. But I also think Iowa State is a possibility. And the Iowa State game, which is on September 11th, will be at 2:30 p.m. So, 2 straight 2:30 p.m. games to start the season, and it will be televised on ABC. So, it will absolutely have the attention of Disney and the ESPN family of networks, being mid-afternoon on ABC, so I could easily see game day being there again. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. What a great way, assuming things are back to normal, what a great way to bounce back for Central Iowa, to get the Cy-Hawk game not only televised mid-afternoon on ABC national TV, but also to have College game day there again, which, remember, College game day was at the last Cy-Hawk game, which was 2 years ago in Ames. Remember, like the 6-hour game with the 2 or 3 rain delays? That was a game day game, and last year it got canceled because the season got altered due to COVID. So, Indiana 2:30 BTN, Iowa State 2:30 ABC. We move down the schedule. If Iowa can get through those first 2 games, I'll be shocked, but also very, very, very happy. Iowa Kent State back in Kinnick. That game on September 18th, what do you know, will also be a 2:30 game on BTN. So Iowa's stuck in that 2:30 time slot, which again I have no issue with. And Kent State, I believe, I'd have to look back at their record, excuse me, last year, but I believe they finished very high in their MAC division, and I believe played in a bowl game. So that'll be a game where it could be a trap game for Iowa. Very well could be a trap game because you're coming off Indiana, you're coming off Iowa State. Iowa will need to be ready for Kent State, and then they get Colorado State on family weekend on the 25th. That game has not been announced as far as a TV time or network yet, so we'll stay tuned for that one on September 25th. We do know that the October 2nd game versus Maryland has been moved back to October 1st. Let me repeat that. The October 2nd game against Maryland has been moved back to October 1st, which is a Friday. So, again, every Big Ten team is going to have to play Friday games at some point. That's just the reality of things. Whether you like it or not, you're going to play a Friday game. Maryland will host Iowa on Friday, October 1st at 7 p.m. in College Park. That will be a fun game. Tua Tagovailoa's younger brother will, I believe, be the starting quarterback again this year for Maryland, and he had some moments last year. That game will be at 7 p.m. Iowa time on Fox Sports 1. So, I have no complaints about a night game ever. I don't care what day of the week it is. If it's a night game, it's a good game. October 9th versus Penn State, Fox or Fox Sports 1. We know it will be a Fox game, whether it be Fox or FS1. It will be the Black and Gold Spirit game, so you'll have the the sections of the stadium striped in gold and black, as we've often seen. And knowing how typically Iowa-Penn State games are kind of thought of to be marquee games, I would not be surprised to see this be a night game. Iowa really doesn't have any other opportunities for night games looking through their schedule. Maybe you get Iowa-Minnesota as a night game. I mean, I know we're kind of jumping the gun. Illinois, I don't know why that would be a night game on senior day. Usually senior days are not night games. But I guess that's possible. I believe Iowa-Minnesota a couple of years back was a night game. But I would not be surprised to see the Black and Gold Spirit game being the night game. Typically, those are the ones that Iowa tries to, I would assume Iowa and Penn State are both on board with that. And the Big Ten, I think, tries to get that game in the evening time slot. So that's October 9th, to be announced as far as a time, but we do know it'll be on either Fox or FS1. October 16th, homecoming versus Purdue in Iowa City, another 2:30 p.m. game. We don't have a network yet, but it will be 2:30 p.m. Again, that makes me happy. October 30th, maybe the toughest game on the schedule, because it's usually the toughest game of the schedule. At Wisconsin, 11 a.m., no network yet decided, but this will be, so far at least on the schedule, the only 11 a.m. game. Would not be shocked to see Colorado State end up being an 11 a.m. game, but I would guess this will probably be the first 11 a.m. game. So for people who like morning games, you're going to have to wait a while for Iowa, Wisconsin, but that will be on October 30th at 11 a.m. to be announced as far as the TV network. And then November 6th, and by the way, we just skipped over. There is a bye week between Purdue and Wisconsin, just so everybody is aware of that. There is a bye week there, which that bye week comes at a good time, right? I mean, you want an extra week to get ready, because Iowa's going to have kind of a gauntlet to start the season off with. Iowa State, Indiana, at Maryland at night, and then certainly Penn State and Purdue. So they need a week off before that Wisconsin game, which we know usually has huge implications as far as the Big Ten West is concerned. Another game that always has big implications and certainly cost Iowa last year after losing to the Wildcats is the game against Northwestern. That will be in Evanston on November 6th with a time to be announced. No TV network, no time yet set for November 6th at Northwestern, but certainly those are two big games back-to-back with Wisconsin and Northwestern. Another big game in the West, Minnesota, November 13th, also has not been announced as far as time. That's the blackout game on November 13th. And then November 20th, that also is still to be announced as far as TV network and TV time. That game is November 20th. And then, of course, the Black Friday game against Nebraska, that has been set. It is November 26th at 12:30 p.m. Iowa time on the Big Ten Network. No issue with that time either on Black Friday. And then, of course, hopefully Iowa's playing the Big Ten Championship on December 4th. But won't it be great to be back to a regular football schedule? Last year with the condensed schedule, the 8-game schedule, and of course Iowa had its last game against Michigan canceled, and then its bowl game against Missouri canceled. Iowa ended up only playing the 8 games. They could have played 10 had those 2 games taken place. But how great this will be to be back as far as a schedule. So that's what we have as far as kickoff times for Iowa football. We mentioned Fran McCaffery will meet with the media today to discuss some student athletes coming on to campus now, which is a good thing. And they'll be able to start getting some work in. We'll see if Fran comments on the Bohannon situation. That's all good. So next week, I want to preview next week here for a moment before we end this thing. We will have Iowa center Riley Mulvey on the show. Iowa freshman center Riley Mulvey, who should be getting into campus very soon. He will discuss. Very interesting kid. It's interesting. It's kind of a sneak preview. I've never personally talked to a college athlete who is so into basketball and yet is not interested in really the NBA at all. I kind of find that interesting. I asked him about the NBA playoffs and he's not really that interested in the NBA. So I find that interesting, but I'm sure he'd love an opportunity to play in the NBA down the line. So, of course, all that is a long way down the line. But, of course, we want to welcome Riley Mulvey, who reclassified for this year, to the Hawkeye family, and we will talk to him during next week's show. So thank you for joining us. This has been week 164 of Brada's Branded Thoughts. And from the Hawkeye of the Storm, we will talk to you soon. Riley Mulvey coming up next week on the show. And again, Iowa football less than 3 months away. We'll talk to you soon.